Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. But today we are talking about the new Pope because even he sees the danger of artificial intelligence. And I think this is really interesting, but less than a week into his new position, the new Pope, Leo XIV, has publicly highlighted his concerns about the rapidly advancing technology. In his inaugural address to the College of Cardinals, he said the church would address the risks that AI poses to, quote, human dignity, justice, and labor, end quote. And for the record, too, in his first speech to journalists, he also cited the quote-unquote immense potential of AI while warning that it requires responsibility, quote, to ensure that it can be used for the good of all, end quote. So, while it's basically far too early to see, or rather say how the Pope is going to use his platform to address these concerns, his focus on AI shows, quite frankly, that he is a prominent world leader that understands the gravity of this potential situation. And his recent past as a cardinal also gives us some insight into not only his, but now the church's position, because remember, the Pope's the head of the church. So, as a cardinal, he was the head of the Vatican office that selected and managed bishops around the world, and he was already thinking about artificial intelligence because last September, then Cardinal, the future Pope, basically has a degree in mathematics, invited an expert to talk to the heads of the other Vatican departments about how to deal with digital life in general, including artificial intelligence. And this actually dates back much further in his own history and is actually a source of inspiration for Leo XIV because he chose his name because of Pope Leo XIII. Now, he occupied the papacy in the late 19th century, and interestingly enough, is believed to be the first person, the Pope Leo XIII, to actually be recorded on video, if you will, and you can go watch that motion picture. It's interesting. And so Pope Leo XIII took on the Industrial Revolution, writing in 1891, that governments, and I quote, must save unfortunate working people from the cruelty of men of greed who use human beings as mere instruments for money making, and even marveled about the quote-unquote discovery of science. Pope Leo XIII was known essentially as the people's pope, focused on the worker, and so obviously we now kind of understand what our new Pope Leo XIV is going to be doing. And so if you're asking me, Nick, like, come on, like, why are we talking about this? Why aren't you talking about the latest Sam Altman news or something else like that? The answer is that the Pope doesn't necessarily have an army. That's a famous quote, but the Pope is influential. There's over 1 billion Catholics on the planet alone, not to mention the fact that he is typically seen as a moral authority outside the church as well, somebody that can influence political machinations around the world, whether it's here in the United States or into the farthest reaches. There are literally Catholics everywhere. So I think this is going to be really interesting because what you have here is basically a move fast and break things attitude here in the United States, especially as we've been lowering guardrails for ethics and AI development here, versus basically what, we now have an influential spiritual leader saying to say, hey, we need to look out for everybody. And quite frankly, I think it's a good message to have because one of the big fears is that we are going to have so many jobs replaced by AI and then automation, aka robots, integrated with artificial intelligence, that we're not slowing our population down. And so what are we going to do with unemployed people who can't find a job, or the socialization of the younger generations trying to get MIC jobs but can't because the robots are basically selling us the Big Macs and making them as well. And so now we're losing that socialization aspect. So I think this is a lot to digest. I'm actually really glad to see prominent leaders, and Dalai Lama, feel free to speak up too, or anybody else, that is in that vein, because quite frankly, I think we need to have an alignment with what is the most beneficial for human population. And if the artificial intelligence is, let's say, doing menial tasks for us, but the artificial intelligence is not creating for us, that's our job. I think that's the best of both worlds. But again, everybody needs a purpose, and if we can't have jobs, which for many people are their purpose in some way, shape, or form, people dedicate their lives around careers, I think it's an important one. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this, but quite frankly, I applaud the new Pope for this, and it doesn't also hurt that he's from Chicago, where I currently am, and quite frankly, if you're a Chicagoan, whether you're Catholic or not, it's pretty dang cool to have a Pope from here. So with that, here you are. That's your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private, secure, and online. Take care.